I need to tell you something that most of my colleagues are not going to be happy about, because it goes against what the majority of doctors say in their offices every single day. For years, and I've been practicing medicine for over 15 years, I told my diabetic and pre-diabetic patients the exact same thing. Stay away from sweets. Anything sweet is your blood sugar's worst enemy. Simple, generic, and honestly, wrong. Until a patient walked into my office. I'll call him Michael, 63 years old, type 2 diabetes for 9 years, and he showed me his labs. His A1C had dropped, his fasting glucose was better. He had more energy, was sleeping through the night, and had lost almost 10 pounds in 2 months, without any extreme diet or weight loss program. I asked him what he had changed. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a date, and I laughed. I genuinely laughed. But then I went and did the research. Real research. Deep research. Literature reviews, clinical studies, physiological mechanisms, and what I found completely changed the way I counsel my patients. That's exactly what I'm going to show you today. Stay until the end, because the most important part isn't what dates contain. It's how you use them. And that detail changes everything. Let's start with the basics, because I know the first thing running through your head right now is, "Doctor, isn't that basically pure sugar?" Yes and no. Let me break it down for you the way I would in my office. No fluff, no overcomplications. A medjool date, which is the most commonly consumed variety and the one I'll reference throughout this video, contains roughly 67 to 70 grams of carbohydrates per 100 grams of fruit. Of those, about 6 grams are fiber. 6 grams sounds small. It's not. Think about it this way. A slice of white bread has less than 1 gram of fiber. A granola bar that the food industry markets as healthy typically has around 2 grams, sometimes less. Your average sports drink? 0. The date, with that fiber content, has a glycemic index that studies consistently place between 42 and 46. For context, white bread sits around 75. White rice comes in around 72. Even some heart-healthy cereals clock in at 65 or higher. What that means in practice is that the sugar in a date enters your bloodstream in a completely different way than the sugar in a soda, a candy bar, or even a glass of fruit juice. Instead of a spike, that sudden flood that forces your pancreas into overdrive, you get a slow, gradual, controlled rise. And from a metabolic standpoint, that difference is enormous. Now, I want to get specific here, because this is the piece most people don't fully understand. When you eat a food that's high in simple sugar and low in fiber, think a glass of orange juice without pulp or a handful of gummy bears, what happens? The sugar hits your bloodstream within minutes. Your blood glucose spikes fast. Your pancreas detects that surge and floods your system with insulin to compensate. Then your glucose crashes hard and fast. And the result? Intense hunger coming back 45 minutes later, a powerful craving for more sugar. That familiar wave of exhaustion right after eating. This is the blood sugar roller coaster. And it's not just uncomfortable. It's inflammatory. Over time, it wears down the pancreas, promotes insulin resistance, and contributes to a cascade of metabolic problems that, in the United States, are affecting nearly 1 in 10 adults with diabetes and an estimated 96 million with prediabetes. Now, when you eat a date with its fiber intact, the mechanism is different. The fiber, especially the soluble fiber found in dates, forms a kind of gel in the intestines. That gel slows the absorption of sugars. Instead of entering the bloodstream all at once, glucose is released gradually over time. The pancreas doesn't have to make a heroic effort. Insulin rises gently. You have sustained energy. Hunger takes much longer to return. Clinically, we call this a favorable glycemic response. And there's a specific piece of data I find particularly compelling. A study published in the Nutrition Journal followed patients with type 2 diabetes and evaluated the glycemic response to date consumption. The findings showed that despite the high sugar content, dates produced a low and manageable glycemic impact, comparable to foods already considered safe for diabetic patients. This isn't guesswork. This is peer-reviewed science. But dates are far more than fiber and carbohydrates, and this is the part that elevates them from tolerable to genuinely powerful. Let me walk you through what's actually packed inside each one of these fruits. Potassium. A serving of 3 dates provides roughly 250 milligrams of potassium. Why does that matter to you? Because potassium is one of the most critical minerals for blood pressure regulation. It acts as a natural counterbalance to sodium. It helps relax blood vessel walls, reduces fluid retention, and supports cardiovascular health. And the majority of Americans who have insulin resistance or type 2 diabetes also deal with some degree of hypertension. So this mineral is arriving at exactly the right moment. Magnesium. This is where I need to pause, because magnesium is the mineral I talk about most in my practice, and the one that is most chronically underappreciated in the American diet. Magnesium plays a direct role in insulin sensitivity. Research consistently shows that magnesium deficiency is associated with worsened cellular response to insulin, meaning cells become more resistant, the pancreas has to work harder, and the metabolic dysfunction deepens. Dates are a relevant source of magnesium. Not the densest source in existence, but combined with other foods in a balanced diet, they make a meaningful contribution. Antioxidants. And here is one of the least discussed secrets about dates. They are among the highest antioxidant fruits you can find, particularly rich in flavonoids, carotenoids, and phenolic acid. These compounds play a fundamental role in fighting chronic low-grade inflammation, which is, not coincidentally, one of the primary mechanisms driving the progression of type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and even cognitive decline. When you eat a date, you are not simply satisfying a sweet craving. You are delivering to your body a set of bioactive compounds that are actively working in your favor. I need to talk about the gut, because nobody connects these two things, gut health and blood sugar, and that connection is absolutely fundamental. Over the last decade, the gut microbiome has become one of the most intensively studied areas in all of medicine, and what the science has revealed is striking. The community of bacteria living in your intestines has direct influence over how your body processes sugar, how your cells respond to insulin, and even how your brain regulates hunger. Healthy gut bacteria produce compounds called short-chain fatty acids, butyrate, propionate, acetate, that have anti-inflammatory properties, improve insulin sensitivity, and help regulate appetite. But those bacteria need to be fed, and their preferred food is fiber. The fiber in dates, particularly the soluble fiber, is fermented by these beneficial bacteria in the large intestine. That fermentation process produces exactly those short-chain fatty acids I just mentioned. In other words, when you eat dates, you are feeding the right bacteria in your gut, which in turn produce compounds that improve your metabolic health. It's a virtuous cycle, and it is the exact opposite of what happens when you eat an ultra-processed food. Here in the United States, where the average adult gets only about half the daily recommended fiber intake, this matters more than most people realize. The Western diet, high in processed foods, low in whole plant foods, has effectively starved the gut microbiome of what it needs to function properly. A simple shift like adding dates to your routine, done consistently and correctly, is one of the easiest ways to start rebuilding that foundation. Now we get to the practical part. And this is the advice I give every single patient who wants to incorporate dates into their routine intelligently. Never eat them alone. It sounds simple. Most people don't apply it. When you pair a date with a source of protein and healthy fat, you amplify the slow release effect even further. Protein and fat delay gastric emptying, meaning food stays in the stomach longer, absorption slows down even more, and you feel full for a significantly longer period. Combinations I recommend to my patients: dates plus nuts, Brazil nuts, cashews, almonds, walnuts, any of them work beautifully. You get the natural sweetness of the date, the healthy fat, and the protein from the nuts. It's a complete snack. It sustains energy, doesn't cause a glucose spike, and still delivers a solid array of micronutrients. This is also one of the most portable, no-prep snack combinations you can keep in your car, your desk, or your gym bag. Dates plus natural almond or peanut butter. Not the commercial version loaded with added sugar and hydrogenated oils. The real thing. 100% nuts, nothing else. The flavor combination is genuinely surprising, and metabolically, it's excellent. The fat content, the high protein, and the fiber of the date form a combination that's hard to beat as a pre-workout snack or mid-afternoon fuel. Slice the date open, remove the pit, and fill it with a small spoon of nut butter. Simple. Delicious. Smart. Dates plus cheese. This might sound unconventional, but it works remarkably well. A lower-fat option like cottage cheese or ricotta provides high-quality protein and complementary fat. The contrast between the intense sweetness and the mild saltiness of the cheese is genuinely pleasant, and the metabolic rationale is solid. These pairings are not culinary intuition. They have a clear physiological logic. The more varied the macronutrients in a snack, the slower and more balanced the glycemic response. Here, I need to be completely straight with you, because I'm not here to sell you a fantasy. Dates are not a miracle food. They do not cure diabetes, they do not replace medication, and they are absolutely not a free pass to eat without limits. What they are, a naturally sweet food with a rich nutritional profile that, when consumed in moderation and in the right way, can be a legitimate ally in blood sugar management and overall dietary quality. The amount I recommend for most of my patients is 2 to 4 dates per day, as part of a structured snack. Never eaten alone, always paired with protein and healthy fat. If you have type 2 diabetes, prediabetes, or any metabolic condition, please speak with your physician before making changes to your diet. Every individual responds differently. What works perfectly for one patient may need adjustment for another. But what I can tell you with confidence is this: dates deserve a serious reconsideration from most people who have written them off based on incomplete information. I want to use this space to address something that genuinely frustrates me as a physician. We live in an era of information overload and, paradoxically, of widespread nutritional confusion. Every week, there's a new food that cures everything, or a food that you should never eat again. People walk around in a permanent state of anxiety about what to put on their plates, and a significant part of that confusion comes from 2 places. The first is the food industry. The United States food and beverage industry spends billions of dollars annually on marketing, lobbying, and yes, funding research that serves their financial interests. The result is a food environment deliberately engineered to make ultra-processed products seem acceptable, desirable, and even healthy, while real whole foods get buried under confusion. The second is the oversimplification of complex science. That has sugar, so it's bad. That has fat, so it makes you gain weight. This kind of binary thinking ignores decades of nuanced nutritional science and causes more harm than good. It's one of the reasons so many Americans feel like they've failed at eating healthy, when in reality, they were just given the wrong framework from the start. The truth is more sophisticated. Context matters, quantity matters, food preparation matters, combination with other foods matters. The individual's metabolic state matters. Dates are a perfect illustration of this. They contain sugar. Full stop in most people's minds. But when you look at the complete picture, the fiber, the micronutrients, the real glycemic index, the effect on the microbiome, you see an entirely different story. This is exactly why I'm here. Because I believe that accessible, high-quality medical education, free from commercial conflict of interest, can genuinely transform people's health. Let me bring it all together in a clear, direct summary. Dates are a naturally sweet fruit that, contrary to most people's instinct, can be consumed by those concerned about blood sugar, as long as it's done in moderation and the right way. The reason is fiber. It slows sugar absorption, prevents glucose spikes, and feeds the beneficial bacteria in your gut, which in turn improve insulin sensitivity. Beyond that, dates deliver potassium for cardiovascular health, magnesium for insulin function, and antioxidants to combat the chronic low-grade inflammation that drives metabolic disease. The right way to eat them is always paired with protein and healthy fat, nuts, nut butter, or cheese, to amplify the slow release effect and extend satiety. The ideal quantity is 2 to 4 dates per day, as part of a structured snack. And the final warning, this does not replace medical care, does not cure disease, and does not work in excess. The power is in the intelligence of the application, not the volume. I want to give you a simple protocol you can start using today. For your afternoon snack, which is the moment when most Americans reach for a bag of chips, a candy bar, a cookie from the break room, or a second cup of sugary coffee, try replacing that with this. 2 medjool dates plus a small handful of raw almonds or walnuts, about 12 to 15 pieces. Plus a glass of water. Simple. Affordable. 0 preparation required. Pay attention to what happens with your hunger through the rest of the afternoon. Notice whether your craving for something sweet after dinner decreases. Pay attention to your energy levels during that late afternoon window when most people hit a wall. Many of my patients report that this single swap produces a noticeable difference within just a few days. Not because dates have magical powers, but because you are replacing a food that triggers a glucose spike, drives inflammation, and fuels compulsive eating, with a food that sustains, nourishes, and regulates. That is an intelligent trade. And nutritional intelligence is precisely what separates the people who manage their health sustainably from those who cycle endlessly through diets, relapses, and frustration. Before I close, I want to leave you with something to think about. Taking care of your health does not have to be a war. It doesn't have to be permanent deprivation, constant guilt, and absolute restriction. It can, and should, be an intelligent construction of habits that you can actually maintain, that bring you genuine enjoyment, that nourish your body, and that you understand the reason behind. When you understand the physiology behind a food, you don't need willpower to make better choices. You simply make them, because they make sense. That's the kind of education I want to bring to you here. Not trends, not 30-day miracle protocols, not oversimplified rules that collapse the moment real life gets in the way. Applied science, real-world relevance, with deep respect for your intelligence and your individuality, because you deserve to understand your own body. And when you do, everything changes. If you made it this far, you already know this channel is different. We don't sell easy promises here. We bring real science, applied to real life, explained in a way that anyone can understand and use starting today. And if you want to keep receiving this kind of content that will genuinely shift the way you think about your health, subscribe to the channel right now. Hit that red button. Turn on the notification bell, because we publish consistently and YouTube won't show you every video unless you do. And leave a comment below. Where are you watching from? I read every single comment, always have, and I'm genuinely curious. Are you watching from New York, Texas, California, Florida, maybe somewhere outside the US, Canada, the UK, Australia? The community that's built here is incredible, and I want to know who's on the other side of the screen. So go ahead, subscribe, and tell me where you're watching from. I'll see you in the next video. Take care of yourself.